Hello, hello. So here we are again for another talk. And thanks everybody for being here. Hi, Mara. It's nice to meet you again. So we first met at an event online as well, focused on social entrepreneurship back in April, I think.
Yeah.
How are you doing? All good?
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. Thank you. It's the evening time here where I'm based, but I'm really excited to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to see you again. It's
You too.
not in person, but it almost feels like it. I'm
Almost.
really excited to have your talk start, but just for our audience that doesn't know you so well yet, I believe it's important just to have a brief introduction. And so Mara is the creator of a House of SweetWaters, which is an entrepreneurial development agency that focuses on empowerment, kindness, and planet healing practices to enable people to do the work they love. And Mara is going to speak about one very important and relevant topic at the session. So, how to succeed as a startup. And I would say, Mara, the stage is all yours. So, you can start.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, I am very happy to be here talking about one of my passion topics. So, to add a little bit more color to the bio, yes, my name is Mara. I'm the founder of House of SweetWaters. But where I started, I worked in operations across a number of different industries, everything from airlines and VIP hospitality to recruitment. And I also, sorry, let me just grab that.
No worries. All good.
I know. Sorry about that.
No problem. This is the intimacy and, going inside your house. Okay. You can go on. Yeah.
So where was I? Yeah, I work in operations across a number of different industries, including airlines and all sorts of other places. And then I moved into working at an accelerator where we house between 2 and 20 different companies. And we had, between 2 and 20 companies that were sometimes up to 15, up to 30 people, depending on the size and the growth stage that they were at. And that was on behalf of UCL, Cisco, and DC Thompson in London's thriving Shoreditch startup team. And that is where I learned a lot, or started planting the seeds for a lot of the things that I am going to talk to you about today. And also then I moved to working internally in companies and now have started my own. So there's a lot of experience that I'm going to be sharing with you all, and I'm just going to get right into it, because how I've decided to kind of approach today's topic is by breaking it down into the things you need before joining a startup, during being at a startup, and after, as you're thinking about launching. And so a lot of the things that I've seen today are things that I've actually talked to people about, coached people through, and helped startups with as well. So real life problems that I've helped solve that I'm sharing with you now, so you can avoid those problems. So joining is obviously the first step, but in order to succeed at a startup, it's super, super important to do your due diligence in picking the right one. And I've definitely seen people get carried away by the glamour or brand of a certain startup, or by the free beer and the foosball table, or by the office puppy that someone likes, and completely miss looking at a number of the different things that are really, really important whilst you're looking. So even from the interview stage, and especially in a competitive job market, we can feel like people are doing us a favor by interviewing us, especially if you're a young grad, and this kind of thing too. This can be, there can be a lot of emotional weight when you're looking for a job. But it's important to know that you're a talent, right? So they're interviewing for you as much as you're interviewing for them. Don't let that opportunity slide. Watch things like, if you're interviewing physically in their office or even virtually, like, what's the etiquette like? Like, if someone's going to be more than a few minutes late, are they sharing that with you? Have the comms been good? Have you been responded to? Are things happening on the timelines that people are talking about? Or if not, because startup world is hectic, right? But if it's not happening on those kinds of timelines, that's okay. But are they kind of dealing with you with the respect and courtesy that you would want? Because it's then no surprise. If they're not now, then this is a real red flag for what it's going to be like when you're in the company. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. Also, people are getting increasingly better at writing really, really great job descriptions that say you're going to have all the fun in the world and this amazing package and this, that, and the other. But make sure you vet that kind of stuff. So when you're reading your job description and when you are looking at the company website quite thoroughly, go on LinkedIn, you can see all the people who work there, check them out, check their experience out, get their vibe, so that you can see if they're promising you a really fun work environment, but you're not getting that kind of vibe. You can start spotting those things from the jump. And it's about finding the kind of environment that's really good for you, because I think what people really forget is that startups come in a huge variety, just as people do. So if you imagine you ask someone to, like, I don't know, draw a cat, everyone's going to do that differently. And that's the same with companies. Everyone would start a company, run a company, create an environment differently. So you have to look really closely at the people, and you can't just take things for granted. Like, I've seen and worked in and been around some really quite corporate startup companies. They can be 5, 6, 7 people, still be in a really cool space in a really cool office, but the environment, the culture, the way people interact with themselves, completely corporate. Whereas I've been in other spaces or other companies where the vibe, again, is completely different, way more flexible, fluid, more creative. There are some that have a more kind of academic energy as well, more research focused. So it's really, really good in creating your startup success to go through and look at the things that you need, where you're at, and start. It's never too early to start kind of pattern matching for those things as you're looking at the companies. I'm just keeping on the time, so I might move on a little bit. But the last thing I'll say on that is that the startup world is quite small. So even if you have your eyes set on that golden egg company, make sure that you are still being courteous and kind and honest with the other companies that you're applying at. Whether you want to tell them all of the gory details is up to you, but definitely you don't know how people are going to come back around. And so, for example, I interviewed at a startup company for a role I didn't end up taking. But then I have since bumped into that person like a good handful of times around London, and they're on my radar still, and I'm on theirs. And then another role came up 3 years later that I was interested in. I didn't end up applying for it in the end, and then actually someone I know at one startup went to work at the other. So it's a very small world, and people tend to know each other, and people kind of network circles, kind of information does flow. So even if you don't like them, you want to make sure that they don't have anything bad to say about you, because you don't know who they're going to be speaking to. So those are my top tips on how to guarantee success when you are joining a company and avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes that I've seen. When you're at a company, the most important thing that I think I've seen to guarantee your success is making sure that you don't take things for granted. Like, it is a busy, fast-paced environment. And so as much as things can change, you want to make sure that you're doing your best and really kind of checking in with yourself and being like, okay, have I communicated well today? Have I done these things? So that you're getting the best out of that environment. You're getting the best out of that environment all the time. And so one thing that I see happen is people say, for example, with a probation review, startups, the person who's meant to be doing your probation review might also have board meetings, investor meetings, a trip to an international office, or maybe an international office to manage around the time of your probation review. So don't sit on your hands expecting them to come directly to you if you are if it's not happening. You have to chase people up sometimes. You can't assume that the way you think it is the way it is in everyone else's head, and it's so easy for things to get siloed. I've worked in really, really small companies where actually the communication channels were not flowing at all. So definitely don't sit in your seat assuming that people know what work you're doing, people know how good you're doing it, people know how hard you're working, what time you're in, all these kinds of things. And all of this is exacerbated by the remote work environment as well. So whether you're communicative or not, and I speak to a lot of people who are like, but Mara, I'm really shy. I don't want to shout about what I'm doing. I've worked this hard to build these skills and I just want to get in, do my work, contribute to a company that I like, and kind of go home. And I'm like, that's great. But assuming you want to keep that, even just a small amount of sharing, however you figure out it's going to work best for you. You don't have to be leading a roundtable once a quarter for everyone in your company to kind of engage in, but ping people messages or ask them what they're working on so you can be like, oh, hey, actually, I'm working on this bit, or I'm updating this code, or I'm speaking to this person, or we're looking at this client. Like, let's collaborate, or can I run some things by you? Because that actually is what makes startups gold. It's what contributes to their flexibility, their ability to move in a fast-paced way, which is why people love startups. So, the time is running really quickly. I didn't realize how much. So I'm going to keep going and move on again. So the other thing too is building your review processes, and don't be afraid to be like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. That happens. Companies move on so quickly. The company can literally change product. The company can change customers. It can change business model. The founders can get swapped out. So you really have to kind of make sure that you are watching really carefully to see whether the environment is still going to suit you, and having conversations with people, because at the end of the day, you working your best is going to benefit the company. So even some of the tougher conversations that you might not want to have, at the end of the day, it's going to be better for you to have the conversation and start moving towards a solution than to sit there and not be producing at your best and kind of wasting a little bit of your time, the company's time, all that kind of thing too. So I can see a few things going on in the chat. So that's really nice to know that you're all with me. Drop some notes. Let me know if you're at a startup, looking at a startup, this kind of thing. That would be really, really great. And when it comes to, I'll wrap up here. When it comes to leaving a startup, that can be really tricky, especially because some of these companies are, especially in the early stages, they really feel like families. And it can sound like a family in your team, or it can sound like it can feel like a family in the team or in the company overall. But just like in my family anyway, communication is key. So making sure you've built those relationships, you can tell people when it's time for you to move on, and framing it as the best thing for everyone, because actually sometimes people come back. You don't know if you might come back, or whatever you move on to, you might go somewhere where then actually you're working at a team that might need to use the product that you were at the last company for, or vice versa. You might go internationally somewhere and be able to feed back information about a different market. Like, there are so many opportunities beyond, okay, I've handed in my notice, bye-bye, see you never, that are really, really important for you to remember that you can utilize, and other people can remember that they can, and the companies can still utilize too. So I think in my last minute of main talk, I would say that some of the most important things, especially when it comes to working at a startup and guaranteeing your success, is being strategic at each stage. And strategy is supported by data and information. So the more you know yourself, the more you know your goals, what you're working on, and where you want to be headed, the more that you can get the best out of a startup environment. Also, networking is key. And I don't mean sending 100 LinkedIn DMs or forcing yourself to speak at events if that's really not your bag, but anything when I work with people, I just encourage them to set mid to long term goals on how they want to be showing up for themselves, their work, and the world, and to start edging towards that each day. So whether that's a message to someone who they wouldn't normally communicate with, sharing a bit more about a project, getting a bit more in front of people. It doesn't have to be like 1,000 degrees, like, hey, like I'm going to be this huge person or this vibrant person that I'm actually prefer being a little bit more reserved or shy. That is okay. But the other thing, and the main thing that is really, really important to guarantee your success at a startup is to find and seek your joy, really. Like the job is going to be complex sometimes, and especially in startup environments where there is so little give. It's not like there's a team of 30 of you who are all collaborating on something. Like sometimes things are really on your head. You have to deal with things, and there's triage and all this kind of stuff that has to happen. But if you have started from a place of finding something where you know you can enjoy where you're headed, even if you can't enjoy every single second, that is really going to set you up for success, because it's going to make you an asset to the company. It's going to make you someone who's really, really, really easy to work with. And it's going to make you someone who people want to give great referrals to, make good recommendations to, collaborate with, and all that good stuff. That's what makes startups great. So we've got a little bit of time left, and I'm sorry that it just decided to get noisy for those 4 minutes.
Yes.
I'm just gonna
It's fine. Yeah. Good. Thank you, Mara, for all of the insights. It's interesting because we've been talking a lot about going after what you want and happiness and fulfillment at the workspace. And it's interesting to see that many speakers address this topic, and you mentioned this as well. So I would maybe ask. And again, you ended with this as well, that you just have to find your joy doing what you're doing. And why would you say it's so important that people do the work that they love, whether it is in a startup or not, like maybe versus that just the job that pays their bills? What would you say on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing work that just pays the bills. Like, I do think that increasingly, especially across like my work, and so seeing the demographics of people and who's coming up, it's becoming increasingly important because people are realizing that nothing is guaranteed. And actually the jobs that our parents and their parents had that paid the bills aren't paying them anymore. Like some of these jobs are I was just looking at some of the average salaries in places versus the rents, and they're really it's a minefield out there, basically. So the idea that, and then because you're going to be taking on so many extra stresses, if you are going to have to hustle, if you are going to have to be like, right, okay, it's going to be a 5-year plan before I'm earning a certain amount, or before I can buy a place, or before I can take care of my family in a certain way. Like day-to-day kind of sanity and mental health is really important. And people are realizing as well that they can't kind of defer that. Like there's no point, this idea that, okay, I'll wait till I'm 60 and then I'll have all my fun.
Right. I'll start my life.
Yeah, it's just becoming a bit outdated, because the world is kind of getting to a way where you won't make it that far if you don't find some joy that's going to help you get there. Yeah, so that's for me. Also, because when you're living in your passion, or doing things that you love, it becomes easier to talk to people about it. And therefore you can make more friends, for example. Also, it enables your tribe and the people who are like also super passionate about that to find you. Because if you're not doing any of that stuff, you might be passionate about a certain kind of code or a certain kind of art or a certain kind of music, and you would really enjoy speaking to those kinds of people. But if you're not doing anything at all that kind of points to that, you're never going to get on a path to meet the people who could be your best friends or your creative compadres or that kind of thing.
Interesting. Yeah, it has been great so far, all these sessions, and yours as well. Thank you again also for sticking around to our audience so far. And Mara, thank you again. I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
And I say bye for now.
You too. It's been great. My LinkedIn is there, and on my website you can book a free chat with me anytime. So please do reach out if anyone has any questions about this or needs any support. I'm always happy to have a chat with someone.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.